Hello, all of you beautiful souls. I had the pleasure of going on a really transformational retreat a few months ago. And I actually had the pleasure of meeting this incredible woman. And before I get into that, I just want to say that astrology has always been something that has resonated with me. I found that ever since I was little and I was like scrolling in the Dolly magazines and looking at the back to what my star sign was, I would always resonate so much with. Sometimes I would resonate with Cancer and sometimes I would resonate with Leo because I do ride the cusp there. So I do resonate with both. And I just found astrology so fascinating, but I never really kind of understood it. I just understood that there was some star signs, and I understand that that the world has this map of numbers and all of this math. And it wasn't until I actually met this incredible human here who I had the pleasure with. She did a natal chart reading for me and for the other people at the retreat. And some of the things that I had read in this chart, in this program, this portal of my life, was so profound that it had me in the back, out the back by myself, reading over in tears, going, oh my gosh. Now it makes so much sense as to why my life has been consistently looping over and over and over again. And it's because I wasn't aligned with my soul's purpose. And it was because I was living my past life. All of the things that I was successful in, what I thought was in this life, was my past life successes. Hence why it didn't bring me that fulfillment. It didn't bring me the joy. It didn't bring me the happiness. So then I started delving into astrology and the magic that this beautiful woman had brought to the table and brought to the group. And I just thought to myself, I have to have her in my life. I have to have her in my circle, and I have to have her on the podcast to share her magic with the world because she's a very powerful woman. So today I have with me the beautiful Cam. Welcome to the potty.
Yay! Hello everyone. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. Oh my God, I am flattered. Thank you.
It's all truth, sister. You are absolutely incredible in what you do. I've had other people that have come into my life that have done astrology, and I've had a few different little readings before. Nothing substantial like this, but had little mini readings before, and I've resonated, but not to the point of of the profoundness and the depth that you went into with this reading. So yeah, so thank you. Thank
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, it was my pleasure doing this for you guys, and it was very in depth.
Mm,
But in saying that, it was still just scratching the surface. So there's
mm,
so much more. Astrology is just one of the most powerful tools in my
mm,
opinion, of course, in my very humble opinion, because it is the map to your life.
mhm.
It holds all the secrets, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, everything. Your evolutionary journey is there. And so, as soon as we start getting that understanding, kind of like you did at the retreat, you were reading that and it really resonated
Mm,
more with your soul and your spirit, right?
mhm.
That's when it clicks. And then we start our journey, but it takes a little bit to get there. That's all. And you do have to, hopefully bump into the right people, because nowadays there's a lot of misinformation, unfortunately,
Yeah,
with
it's
social
really
media.
that divine timing. And it's you said something at the retreat as well that you go by not so much the new age teachings, but rather the
Yes.
traditional older style astrology. And do you feel that that may be a part and a reason as to why your readings and the charts that you do are so correct?
Yes, 100%. There's different types of astrology. Nowadays you will see what you see on social media, and that, it's more towards modern astrology. Modern astrology is more based on character, personality, psychological traits. Whereas traditional astrology, the one that I practice, Hellenistic astrology, ancestral astrology, however you want to call it, is based on, it's got more of a predictive nature to it, because astrology was originally a predictive tool. It's a divinatory system. So it's not so much a therapeutical tool, it's more of a predictive tool. So there's a big difference in the two, but when you combine the two, oh my God, which is what I did with you guys. But focusing more on the traditional side, it can give me just your everyday life, your path, your soul's journey as well. So it's a little bit more accurate because it's more precise. That's all it is. The other one is a little bit more, I guess, subjective.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that it's more along the soul's path as well and the soul's mission, because ultimately we are souls having a human experience, and it's something that we talk deeply about on this podcast, and we'll continue to speak deeply about even more in depth. But we can get so caught up in day-to-day life, thinking that we just are human and we just are, having this experience, and life can continue happening to us rather than for us. So when we can really start to connect with our soul's evolution, which
Ooh,
is literally why we're here, right? It's
yes.
to evolve as a soul, it's to evolve as a species of humanity, it's to evolve as a consciousness, the collective consciousness. So, Cam, I'd love to hear how astrology came about for
Ooh.
you. Like, how did your journey start? How did you get into this
Yes.
incredible passion of yours?
Yeah, my journey. Up until I was 28, I'm 38 now. I was very much, living in my your day-to-day, going to work, making money, paying bills,
As we do.
as we do, and most people think 28 is, you're an adult, you're grown, but you're actually quite young. Now I think of myself at 28 and I'm like, oh my God, there's so much difference between the two Cams. And anyway, so back then I had gone through a breakup and very long relationship. And yeah, that really it hit me, it hit me hard. And anyways, through work, I met this lovely friend, and his mom used to live in Lismore. And I know this is very detailed, but I promise I'll make it short. So his mom lived in Lismore.
Details are great. Details are great. Give us the deets.
Tease, all the goss. And he just asked me to come to Lismore with him because he hadn't seen his mom for a while. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going through a bad time. It's not going to hurt. Let's do it. Road trip. So off we go. I live on the Gold Coast. So off we go. And yeah, so I get to the mom's house, and the mom, she was such a character. Her house was full of books, and this kind of like wooden house with very high ceilings, and she was smoking and just, coffee in hand, and she just sat down and she asked for my birth details. And I was like, oh, that's odd. But anyway, so I gave her the details, and she said to me, did you just go through one of the most painful heartbreaks of your life? Like literally, that was one of the first things she said to me after the introduction and after I'd given her the details. And I was like,
Wow.
how did you know that? I want to know. And so she kind of explained, she was an astrologer. She was studying, well, she had just finished studying astrology, and she was just showing, she was like, oh, this is astrology, and look at your chart, and this is how I know. And my mind just went. And at the time I was having a transit, I had Saturn, the planet of lessons and karma, right on top of my Venus, which is the natural planet and natural significator of relationships and love. And so when these two meet, can bring things like a massive, painful breakup in order to realign you with your true path. It's teaching
Wow.
you lessons. So it's taking you literally, it's taking everything away from you so you can start over, but in the right path, which is what happened to me. And I couldn't understand why everything had happened until that moment where she sat there and she just explained everything to me. And so we spent probably 8, 9 hours talking. I'm not even kidding you. And she gifted me this book. And it's, look at it.
Wow.
It's so old, but I treasure it because it's my first astrology book.
Anyone that's not watching the YouTube video and that's listening to the
Oh,
audio,
sorry.
Cam's holding up this book that's like half broken and scratches. Looks like it's about 500 years
Yeah.
old. Cute.
And it was my first astrology book, and I had no idea what it was, what I didn't, I had to read it. I've read it 1,000 times. And it finally made sense as I started studying, because then when I left, I was like, I want to do this. This is what I need to do. This is it. And so I started studying on my own. And I did that for about a year. And then I was like, I've learned as much as I can on my own. Now I need teachers. I need someone to answer my questions, because back then, we're talking 2014, 2015. And back then, astrology wasn't a thing, it wasn't in the in social media. It wasn't a thing. So I didn't know anyone else that knew astrology. And
It
so,
was really seen as woo-woo back then, like kind of a little bit weird back then, wasn't it? It was like, oh,
yes.
astrology, that's just crap. And
Yeah, I was very judged by a lot of people, but others supported me. They were like, I have no idea what this is, but you know what, I'm with you, let's do it, you seem to love it. And they just supported it, and they're still in my life today. And yeah, after about a year and a half, I finally found a teacher in Europe. He was from Serbia, and I've connected with him and his way of teaching. And yeah, I just started learning from him and dived into this whole thing. And I ended up studying for 7 years, and I started practicing back in late 2020, like November, December 2020. I was like, okay, I need to do it. You're always going to learn more, but enough, enough. You can start seeing people now, because I wasn't very secure in myself, because I find that astrology it's such a, to me, I'm all about ethics, and I'm all about, things. Astrology is so personal, and it's so private, and you have to be careful in how you deliver a chart reading, the words that you use, where you begin the reading, and everything is just, yeah, I didn't think I had it in me. I was like, I don't want to say the wrong thing or hurt someone with my words, or say, I was so scared of that, because I knew that some people rely so much on this type of tools. And yeah, so after a while, after talking to a lot of loved ones, they just said, you are really good, do it, just jump, just jump.
I
And I
love
just,
that. I love that. There's a song, I can't remember who it's by, but it's on my Soul Replenish playlist, and it's basically just says, um, don't think about it. Just close your eyes. Don't think about what comes before or what's coming after. Close your eyes, bend your knees, and jump. And then it just has beautiful little melody where it's like you can't help but just feel
wow,
into it and move your body, but it really just permeates your soul when you listen to this song. And it just reminded me of that. But
yeah,
I just want to say, from my perspective, thank you for following your calling and for following your purpose and for following your path, because your reading really opened up my eyes.
thank you.
I had when I started shamanism, when I started my shamanism journey, which was 12 months ago, maybe just under 12 months ago. I had my first in-person reading by a lady who's been practicing shamanism for 40 odd years, I think, 30 or 40 years, a very long time. And she had said some things about myself that were just like a little natal chart thing. That's not where she specializes, but
Uh-huh.
she said some things there, which then associated with the 4 directions of the 4 winds in shamanism, which associated with what type of medicine woman that I am, and it all just made sense. And I walked away from that and just went, "Oh my gosh, like this is such a powerful, powerful
Yeah.
tool." But unfortunately for me, growing up, as I share on my podcast, I've shared my journey before. My mother told me my birth date was one time. My father told me my birth date was another
No.
time. So I was like, guys, I'm an only fucking child. How can we not know my birth time?
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
No, but it's funny now, right? Like there's no inner child wounding there anymore. But so what I ended up doing, Cam, was right before this specific retreat is I actually paid and reached out to the hospital and paid for them to give me all my birth details. I only just wanted my time of birth so I could get like my human design chart and I could understand more about myself that I knew but I didn't know. And the interesting thing is, someone had posted in the group that we needed the time of birth, date of birth, name, and all of these details literally a few days after I received this back. So it was so divine. So when I had received this back and I'd got the time of my birth, I was like, oh, it all makes sense now. And then when you had done this reading, it was just so divine. So it worked out really, really beautifully. And it also made a lot of sense too. With I saw a clairvoyant many, many years ago. I think it was over 10 years ago. And she told me that I was a cusp rider. So I was a Cancer Leo. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that would make sense because I've always associated sometimes with the Cancer the horoscopes, and
Uh-huh.
sometimes with the Leo horoscopes, depending
Of
on where things are. I guess I didn't really know. I'm sure you would know a lot more about that, Cam. But when I found out my time of birth, which was 11:45 p.m., I was like,
mm.
"Well, that actually makes sense because I'm 45 minutes off being a Leo, so that kind of makes a lot of sense." But what I'd really love to dive into now is just a little bit more in depth and
Yeah.
understanding of like the nodes and where that associates with like this life and with our past life, because I've got my reading here in front of
Mhm.
me and had a bit of a skim over it before the potty just to refresh my memory. And even just again, I'm like just profoundly understanding that my north node, the in depth, and you said it's only scratching the surface. To me, this is like, whoa, this is like my whole life. But here in this process, it has allowed me to open up and to understand that, for my soul's evolution is actually compassion, spiritual growth, which makes so much sense into my life. But I would really love for you to share just your understandings with what is the north node, what is the south node, and how do we benefit from understanding how they show up in our life?
Yes, yes, of course. So with the reading that I did for you, because of course the retreat was focused on like an evolutionary journey of the soul. So that's why I did it this way. And this is called actually evolutionary astrology, which is very beautiful and interesting as well. It's another type of
Wow.
astrology, I guess you could say. And in evolutionary astrology, you can see the nodes as the path of your soul, your soul's path through this lifetime. The south node shows you where you've come from a past life. So everything that you've already mastered in a way. So
So is that with all past lives or just like the previous few?
the previous, so the previous past life, what you've mastered already in that one. So for example, yours is in Virgo, in the sixth house, if I'm not wrong. Yes, Virgo sixth house. And this is all about material gains, work, practicality, things that are tangible, health as well. But it's not, the sixth house is not a spiritual house per se. So in a past life, you've conquered this successes in the material world. And so in this lifetime, the North Node, which is in the opposite house, the 12th house in Pisces, and the 12th house and Pisces, they both talk about, as you said, compassion, healing. Oh my God, healing is a huge part of this, spirituality, consciousness, dreams. It can manifest, of course, in different ways. You don't have to be one thing, but you would be interested, or you could be really, you could thrive in things like shamanism, spirituality, medium, psychic abilities, channeling, all of these things that are a little bit more, as your podcast is called, woo-woo, you know?
It's so interesting that you say that, Cam, because like in this lifetime, I felt that sometimes in my world, there's so many spiritual things happening at once that it becomes so overwhelming that I'm like, whoa. One minute I'm connecting with entities, the next minute I'm having a spiritual awakening, the next minute I'm having journeys and my soul, like consistent ego deaths, which I now know is just so beautiful. But sometimes it's like, whoa, what's happening? However, I've gotten to that point now where I'm just like, oh, I'm all for it. Like, I'm here for that spiritual growth. Like, tell me everything about everything because just feed my mind. Like,
Yeah.
I'm loving it, feed my soul. But I know for me in the past, it has been such a process of unlearning to get out of the analytical mind and to just drop
Mm-hmm.
into the heart and allow what's coming through to just coming through without trying to make meaning or trying to materialize it, which
Yeah.
is something that I've definitely done in so many ways.
Yes, definitely. And with the South and the North Node, the interesting thing is that we are born in our South Node energy, of course, because this is what we are carrying through our past lives. So for the first 45 years, really, we are stuck in that South Node. As the years go by, of course, we start going towards the North Node. So right now, I feel like you and I could be maybe a little bit over halfway. We're not 100% there yet. And that's only because of the age. 45 is normally when people that have aligned with their soul's path can reach that North Node. Before that, it's all about the journey, the experiences, the healing, the lessons, the everything, the heartbreak, everything that takes you there. And we normally find the North Node very uncomfortable energy throughout our life, not just now, throughout our life, because this is familiar. The South Node is familiar. It's what we know. It's, comfort. It's our comfort zone. So for us to go to the exact opposite of that is unknown territory, and it's so scary. And it's, how can I leave my 9-to-5 job, Virgo, 6th house, in admin, and go and venture as a shaman? No way. That's scary. That's how. I have
Mm-hmm.
bills to pay. I have this and this, and it's like, we understand that is your ego talking. That is your the ego. But as you grow and as you evolve, your soul will start putting things in your path that will start guiding you towards there. And sometimes, of course, as humans, like I did, we don't see those signs. And so then the universe has to be a little bit brutal, and be like, okay, that's it. You didn't want to listen. We gave you all these signs. Here we go. Now we're going to have to, but you still get on that path, and the journey towards the North Node starts becoming less, you're not as afraid anymore. You're excited now. It's there's a difference. At first, you're scared, and then it gets exciting. You still don't know what's there, but now we are willingly working towards that. And so I think that's the beautiful thing about it. The unfortunate side of it is that not everyone gets to do that, because not all of our journeys are not the same. Some people are here to stay in that South Node and repeat, and then maybe the next life they'll get to their North Node, and that's okay. It's their own journey. So we never have to judge, number one. And number two, we never never ever have to question or compare ourselves. Like, how come she or he is where I want to be or where I should be, and I'm not. And that is such a wrong thing to do, because you're exactly where you should be at this time, at this moment in time. It's your journey.
In a reading, have you ever been able to see that someone is going to repeat their cycle and their pattern and not going to have so much spiritual evolution in their path, this journey, this
There are
lifetime?
yeah, there are some signs in the chart that can point towards that. It could be sometimes you could see that through Saturn. Maybe if that Saturn is very close to one of the nodes.
So
If
how would you tell someone about that though? Because you can't, obviously you can't
no,
interfere with
no,
so you can't tell them.
no, I don't.
Wow, it's really powerful.
No, 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 because then you, as you said, you would be interfering. And unless they ask and they are open to it, yes, we can talk about it. But if you are clueless to this, I am not going to bring you down by saying something like that. It's not right. You at some point, if you do get there, you'll find me and then we can talk about it again then. But no, it's not something that I would say. It's kind of like if it's kind of like dealing with death. I don't talk about that either. I do not predict death. I refuse to. um can you see it? Yes, you can. Do I look for it?
Yeah.
No, because there are techniques that you have to apply. No, I don't.
Mhm.
I don't want to talk about that. I want you to live your life as free as you can. I am just meant to be a guide. I'm not meant to dictate how you should live your life. So some people get that mistaken. And yeah.
Really powerful. I didn't know that. So I know in shamanism that there's a lot of, and look, in every in other areas as well, there's things such as like I know in the plant medicine world they call them, it starts with W. It's like a bad shaman that, puts hexes and curses on us. It creates too much power, right? One person gets too much power,
Yes.
realizing that they can do all of these things, and then the ego takes over and that power entity takes over, or whatever it may be. But I could only imagine that in the predicament, in the position that an astrologist can put themselves in, it could be turn out like that. It could turn out as like a very powerful tool to use against people. Have you heard of this happening, or know of anyone that has been through something like this? Very interesting.
Yes. Some people do use astrology, as with everything, right? You can use it for good or you can use it for evil.
Hmm.
I always tell people, and this is important to get out there, don't give your birth time and your details to everyone. Like, don't just because your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your whoever says, hey, what time were you born? I just want to see something on the internet. What? Don't. Your birth time, your birth details are it should be the most private thing you have. Why? Because you can at some point, maybe, hopefully never, bump into people that will use that for evil. And they
Well, I've just broadcasted my birth time to the whole of the audience here.
can
Talk about that spiritual growth. Bring it on.
protection. um but yeah, so it's very common, don't get me wrong, everyone does it, but I am not one for sharing my information just like that. It's kind of like, when you go to the doctor, when you go to your therapist, it's confidential. It's the same principle. Whatever we talk in a consultation is 100% private. I will not go and share your experience with anyone. I will not talk about you with anyone. And that's how it should be. That's how it should remain. Because you're opening a door to the most vulnerable parts of yourself in a reading, and you should respect that. Just like, for example, and a lot of astrologists do this as well, not everyone though. They will use so say, for example, I don't know, I like someone and I'm like, I'm going to get his birth details, and then you get the chart of the person, and you might not know anything about astrology, but then you start seeing, oh, his Venus is here or his ascendant is there. And I personally find that unethical, because you cannot, without consent, you should never do that, because you are tapping into the person's most private details of their lives. And so without consent, I don't analyze anyone's chart.
Yeah, that's a really powerful statement. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really truly believe that so many of the listeners here will gain so much beauty and magic in that. You know, I couldn't help but have had a bit of a giggle when I was a teenager. I used to, before I dated someone, I'd be like, what star sign are they? What's their name? How do you spell it? And do like the one and the crossovers. Do
We
they
all did.
match me? We're going to marry. Yep, we're going to have 3 kids.
I did that
There's,
too.
but there's a little bit of truth in that though, right? Isn't there?
Yes. Yes,
Mm.
I did that too. I think we all have. But now that, I know more about it and I know the power behind it, I don't. Actually, with my partners, for example, I don't look at charts. I don't look at their charts until later, maybe 6 months, a year into the relationship. Then I will look at the chart. But at first, I feel like every relationship or every situation should be experienced to the fullest. And if you are analyzing a chart before even meeting, getting to know the person or the job or anything you're starting, then you are automatically um, putting a blockage there, you know?
Oh, yeah, it's that intention. It's that intention out there of distrust.
Yes,
When you're putting that
yes,
intention out of distrust, then you're going to gain back distrust. Mm.
exactly. So I think that everyone should just, you're a Taurus, I don't know, Sagittarius. Okay, our sons, technically speaking, don't talk well together. We don't get along, right? That's what the magazines are going to tell you. But there's so much to the chart. Where's your moon? How is it talking to the person's Mercury or Saturn? Where's your Mars? There's so much more that you can't just go by that one or two things. So you can't make judgment on that straight away and then possibly miss out on a very beautiful relationship. No,
Mm.
don't do that.
Very powerful. Very powerful. What would you say to someone that felt that they were unhappy in life? They just continue to repeat the same patterns.
Mm.
From an astrology point of view, what would you say to them about that?
Uh, Number one, I would recommend, not with me, it can be with anyone, but do get a reading. But
I second that.
I, Woo,
Hands down. Go to Cam. Go to Cam.
and I'm not saying this just, because it's so enlightening, it's so enlightening to find out exactly about your blueprint. Your birth chart is your blueprint. And it will maybe unblock things for you. So, for example, if you have some childhood trauma and you think that, okay, well, this is it. I had a terrible childhood and now I'm repeating the patterns and this is it. It's just my life. Well, it's not. We can work around it. But the first thing we need to do is bring things to consciousness, to acceptance. And then we can look at your chart for possible getaways. Okay, you had a terrible childhood. That was in your chart when you were born. That was part of your lessons, and it's hard. But that doesn't mean that this is going to dictate who you are for the rest of your life. No. So we can work around it. The chart will always show you the problem, but it will also give you the solution. So that's why the reading is so important. And like I always say to my clients, don't just go to any astrologer you see, because they may be, I don't know, maybe they have a huge following, or they, I don't know, they're a friend of a friend, or, don't get fooled by that. Do your research just like you would when you go to the doctor, when you go to see a therapist. If you have childhood trauma, you are not going to go see a general therapist. You should see someone that specializes in the area. Same with the doctor. If you have cancer, you are not going to go to, I don't know, a heart doctor, a cardiologist. Oh, so go to the specialist and see what type of astrology resonates with you more. Modern, evolutionary, traditional, Vedic, which is the Indian one. There should be some research done prior to choosing the astrologer. because it depends on your journey and what you prefer. Some people are more evolutionary. They prefer, you know, to see the soul's journey. Other people are more structured. They like facts. Perfect. Let's do an traditional astrology reading. You know, there's just different for everyone. So just do your research. That is the best thing I can tell you. But answering your question is get a reading and be open. I always say as well to my clients, astrology is a dialogue. I am not a witch. I am not a mind reader or a psychic, a channeler. I am none of that. Unfortunately, I would love to be.
Yeah. We all are at heart.
At heart. I am an interpreter. Astrology is a language. And so you are in charge of guiding the reading. So there should be a dialogue. So the client has to be open, has to be willing to share and willing to feel vulnerable. I'll ask questions, you will answer, you will give me context. I give you the astrological part of it behind the scenes, you know, and that's how we navigate a reading. But if you're going to go with a closed mind, you are not going to get much out of the reading, unfortunately, because a lot of people expect it to be like a psychic reading, and it's not. I'm an interpreter, you know, I am translating the language of the gods. That's what it is.
Do you feel that, because I know for me, it was like when I read what I read on my papers, on all of my papers, it was permeating my soul. Like, do you feel that you've got to be at a position in your life to get a reading? Like, I know that you can get a reading whenever. I'm going to be getting a reading for my teenagers
Yes.
from you for Christmas, right? I feel I was like, no, they need to know this. Woo! But do you feel that for it to really land and for it to be like a psychic reading, let's just say, that one's soul needs to be at a specific moment of receiving to be able to understand what the reading is trying to tell them?
Yes, 100%. Just like you said, anyone can get a reading at any point in their lives. You know, I personally don't do like full natal chart readings for people over 25 years of age, because the moon, every planet has a maturation age, and the moon
Did you
matures
mean under or over?
under, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, under 25. The moon matures at 25. And so after 25, okay, we can start opening ourselves to this world, because we'll have a better understanding. We'll have the emotional intelligence to understand a little bit better, to receive the messages a little bit better, and we'll be a bit more mature. You know, can you imagine saying this type of things to an 18-year-old? It's too much, it's too confronting. Of course, there are exceptions. There are young people that are extremely, especially nowadays, I see some younger people that are, wow, like you, something else. This type of people, maybe not a full in-depth chart, but, you know, an introduction, 100%. And it's the same with children. I don't do children's chart, as in I don't do predictive work with children ever. And I do it with the parent. And I only analyze the sun, the moon, and the ascendant, no other planet, because those are the three main ones to understand for a child, especially the moon. The moon is extremely important for a child. So, yeah, I feel like we should all be responsible when practicing, you know, this type of things.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Can we talk a little bit more about the sun, the moon, and what was the other one that you said?
Ascendant.
Yeah, beautiful. Can we just talk a little bit about that, just to get a little bit of an
Yeah.
understanding on how the sun, the moon, and even what the ascendant
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, of course. So the sun is your nature, right? It's light, it's life, it's your vitality, it's your ambition, it's your goals. It's who you are at the core. The moon is your private life. It's your childhood. It's your safety, your emotional security. It's your mother. Sun is your father. So it shows me how you grew up, the experiences you had as a child. And it's all your emotions, you know, it's your subconscious as well. The ascendant is, this is why we need the time of birth. The time of birth dictates the ascendant. And so the ascendant is the sign that shows me, number one, your appearance, something as simple as that, your appearance, your body type, your health, and how other people perceive you, what kind of perception they get from you with that first impression. And I think I said it at the retreat. Whereas the ascendant is like you're at home and someone rings the bell and then you open the door, and that this is the stranger, right? It's that first impression. It's like, oh, who's this? Are they tall? Are they short? Are they blonde? Are they redhead? And then you invite them in to have a coffee, and you sit in your lounge room having a coffee and having a chat, and then we get to see the sun, you know and then we go to the bedroom, the most private part of the house, and that's your moon. And that's how I normally explain it to people. I find it's quite easy way to understand. But yeah, they are the three pillars of your chart.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's so interesting. My mind is like, whoa, wow,
Yeah,
feed me, tell me more.
I know. And it's so interesting because, as I said, with the moon for children, especially, so important because that is the security, the emotional security, how they feel safe. I've always, at least in my practice, you have 7 years as a parent. The first 7 years of your child's life are the most important. This is where you do not get to make a mistake, um, because everything gets recorded in the subconscious. They may not remember that when they were 2 years old, something terrible happened, but the subconscious, it lives there. So then when they grow up, they press play, the subconscious does, and we start repeating patterns. And if mom used to yell at dad and, bad things happen, then I'm going to attract people and relate love to that because that's what I saw when I was little. And so these are the things that, as parents, I think we have to be so aware of in those first 7 years of life of a child, that moon. That's not to say that in grown-ups that's not important. Of course it is, but especially in children, it's very important to understand the sign, the aspects, the house, everything about that moon. For example, with your chart, you have that moon in Scorpio. You have a very it's a powerful moon in the 8th house conjunct Pluto. It's so much. I mean, I could sit here for 2 hours talking to you about that.
But definitely had to get you on again.
Yes, I would love to. But yeah, that already tells me, in that 8th house, Mars is the dispositor of Scorpio, so the ruling sign, a ruling planet of Scorpio, where that moon is, and Mars is in your first house. Very powerful Mars you have. And so that already tells me that you experienced maybe a very traumatic childhood, very unsafe, that you lost perhaps that sense of security or safety that your parents were meant to provide. Something happened that it wasn't there for you. You lost your security blanket somehow. And this can be extremely hard for people because that means the moon in Scorpio normally it's set to be in detriment. So she doesn't like to be in that sign. She's in the house of Mars. The Mars is the warrior, and so she's uncomfortable in that sign. And with Pluto as well, so powerful. But the power for the person, for you, will come after some very challenging situations, especially in the early years of the life. And this can involve all sorts of, things such as, abuse, emotion of all types, emotional, physical, everything. And once you get the understanding of the lessons, you become a phoenix, which is the most beautiful part of Scorpio. Scorpio, number one, please, everyone listen. Scorpio and Capricorn, the two most misunderstood signs of the zodiac. So misunderstood. Scorpio has this beautiful power that, it has 3 stages. So you have the Scorpion, that the Scorpion will kill just because it feels threatened, or out of ego, if you want to. And it can kill itself, with its own tail. But then as Scorpio starts moving through life and starts hopefully evolving, then we get to the eagle, so we're not on the ground anymore. Now we're on the air, and we kill, but we only kill for food, for resource. We don't kill just because, like the Scorpion does. And then if we keep going through the journey, then we get to the Phoenix. And that is the most beautiful, purest form of Scorpios. This is where you'll see the shamans, the gurus, the spiritual awakened people. So Scorpio to me is the most powerful sign of them all. And when you have your moon in Scorpio, you have that power within you, especially with that Pluto, my God. But unfortunately, you have to go through some challenges, hard challenges through your first years of life in order to get there. It's kind of like without that, you can't achieve this level. You can't help the way you're meant to help. You have to live through these things in order to get a full understanding. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, that makes so much sense. And you've just explained my whole life, really. Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much word for word. The listeners know I share my journey very openly and very
Okay.
vulnerably. And yeah, extreme trauma over and over and over and over
Mm,
again from very, very early, from a baby all the way through.
yeah.
And then eventually getting to that point of having enough
Yeah.
and having enough of my own shit of
It,
contracting the same situations and relationships and friendships and careers, the same thing. And then all of a sudden getting to that point where you're just like, right now we're going deep
yes.
into the darkness, going deep into the shadows, and we're fixing, we're moving, we're reprogramming, we're healing all that we need to do to become that phoenix rising, and then going through that process. And then now, again, on the other side of that is that, well, stepping into that life's purpose, which for me has been, shamanism, it's been healing, it's been energy healing, all of the things,
Yeah.
which has been really beautiful. So, just so people can get a little bit more of an understanding on how the planets and the houses
Yes.
align, what would you say to someone who's fairly new to astrology, just so they can get a little bit of an understanding regarding all of that?
So if you are super new to astrology and this is Chinese to you, don't worry, it's gonna get easier. But just focus, just focus on your rising, your moon, and your ascendant. Start there. Don't worry about everything else. That is just basic. If you are already, if you are comfortable with that and you want to keep learning, then just at least with this is, of course, I'm talking as a traditional astrologer. Um, if you are, say, an Aries ascendant, for example, as you are, Dani, um, Aries ascendant, you put Aries in that first house. Okay. The wheel has 12 houses. Just imagine a pizza and there's 12 slices. Okay. That first slice is your ascendant. That's house number 1. And so then you go through the zodiac, right? So after Aries comes Taurus. So not house number 2, the second house will be Taurus. After Taurus comes Gemini. So the third house will be Gemini. Then the fourth house will be Cancer. And off you go in zodiacal order. And then the 12th house will be Pisces because that is the last sign of the zodiac. So, and then you can start getting an understanding once you have the structure. Then you can understand the fact that, for example, the first house does talk about your health, your appearance, as I said before, that first impression. The second house talks about your resources, how you make your money, everything material. It's a material house. It does rule your face as well, your teeth, your neck, and your early childhood, like the family, because it's when you're a baby, who fed you, who gave you the resources to stay alive. That's the second house. And then the third house, that is the house of communication and brothers and siblings and neighbors. And it's a very light house, transportation, short trips. And then the fourth house is family, heritage, roots, the father in traditional astrology, the mother in modern astrology. It changes, so don't get confused by that. The fifth house is children. We can see your children. We can see your romantic life, your sexual life, your creative projects, your if you're an entrepreneur, your own business, your hobbies and all of that. Sixth house, work, health routine, pets. Seventh house, relationships. The first house is the self. The seventh house, which is the exact opposite, is other people, relationships, business partnerships, marriage, contracts. Eighth house, the eighth house is one of the dark houses because it deals with the psyche, everything that little black box that we all have, that we refuse to look at. That's the eighth house. It holds secrets and betrayals and themes of sexuality as well, intimacy, taboo themes. So anything from sexual taboos to things like astrology, witchcraft, tarot, numerology, everything that is not accepted by society, I guess. And financial house as well. The second house, the opposite house, is my resources. The eighth house is other people's resources. So loans, credit cards, inheritance, taxes, all of that doesn't belong to you, but you still use. The ninth house, spirituality, religion, travel, widen your horizons, languages. Astrology goes into the ninth house because it's the house of God. The third house, the opposite, is the house of the goddess. Ninth house is long trips. Third house is short trips. And then the 10th house is your life path, your career, your reputation as well, your status, whether you are single, widowed, married, separated, all of that. And then the 11th house is your community, as in your friend group, benefactors, your goals as well, your wishes. It's a very beautiful house. And then the 12th house, the last house, again, dark house, just like the 8th, right? And this house does talk about things like subconscious. It rules your sleep. Literally, when you go to sleep, what type of sleep do you have? Are you a good sleeper? Do you have insomnia? That type of things. And your dreams as well. Do you dream? What do you dream? It rules spirituality, but on a more practical level, it does rule everything that takes you away from society. So we're talking about hospitals, jails, retreats, spiritual retreats, temples, churches, everything that, exile as well, because that removes you from society, right? It sends you to a foreign land. So it does rule foreign lands as well. So yeah, that's a very, very, of course, quick way of explaining how the 12 houses work.
Wow, that was so much information in such a short time. Oh my gosh, that was incredible. Thank you. My brain is like, whoa. Now I understand why you say that it's such a personal process.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes, definitely. And you know how your North Node is in Pisces in the 12th house. So you have the things from Pisces that are about spirituality, shamanism, channeling, mediumship, psychic, dream interpreter, maybe, things like that. And where do you do this? You do this in seclusion, right? In a retreat. You do this away from society. You don't go to a shopping center and sit there, you have to remove
Be
yourself.
taken to a mental institution. What
Well,
is this witchcraft?
well, the 12th house does rule mental institutions as well. It rules crazy people. So yeah, so this placement for you is exactly what you are doing with your life, which is all of this shamanism work, and doing it as, I don't know if you hold retreats or if you do things of that nature. If not, then you should do that, because that's where the soul wants to go. Don't stay in the office. The office is the 6th house, the opposite house. That's the office. That's the 9 to 5. That's the admin job. That's the Excel program. Now you've already mastered that. You're good at that already. Let's go towards the unknown 12th house.
Yeah, it's very powerful. I actually want to share something. So not long after I got this reading with you, Cam, I had sat with Mama Aya, and I went and had a conversation with my soul, and it was very confronting. It was very confronting. My soul told me, it showed me, well, Mama Ayahuasca showed me everything that was there. And I had this direct conversation with my soul, and my soul told me that I am a shaman and that I need to get up and I need to help the shamans do what they were doing. And I, of course, my ego was like, oh, hell no. So I started freaking out and I was like, no, I am not. And I fully just ran away from my soul. Like my soul was telling me what my purpose was and what I needed to do. And my mind was like, absolutely not in this lifetime. And it was really, really interesting because throughout this ceremony was quite challenging for me because I kept shutting my soul up. My soul told me other things as well about creativity and, you know, painting and channeling art, which I'm now doing. I'm creating my oracle deck and all of that magic, right? Yes, I am. Yay. I was like,
let me know when it comes out. Sorry.
yes, yes. Everyone knows now. Yeah, so not only was it telling me that, but it was telling me that there's this deeper connection that I must go. There's a much deeper journey that I have to go on. And at this moment, as you were speaking earlier, you know, like it can be quite a scary process because it's not familiar. The soul doesn't know it. Whereas previously, I had thought that I was a shaman in a past life because it felt so familiar to me, when in hindsight, maybe I was. However, there's some sort of stepping into that, whether it's partly through this life, partly through the next. And my ego and myself is like, no, we don't want this. This is fearful. We're scary. We don't want to be doing this. But the soul's like, this is so good. And it's interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, I could go on a whole story about this, but I won't. This will be for another podcast. But I do hold retreats, and I've held retreats, women's retreats this year. I've held a few. And it's been a really beautiful journey of holding space for other women. And just on the weekend, on Sunday, actually, I held my last women's retreat for the year. And through this process, I had actually stepped into my shaman woman through my medicine drum. And I had some of the women, there was this one woman in particular who was shaking uncontrollably and was releasing this entity, this trauma out of her body. And then I had just like stepped into this shaman woman role and just was beating the drums so fast and so hard over her body that it just completely purged out of her body. And then I was able to like sit with her and allow it to just do some energy healing and then move away from that girl. And then it ended up happening with another girl as well, just not as in depth. And I walked out of this retreat and went, holy shit. Like that was just natural. Like whatever just happened, I did not think, I did not act, I did not do. It just was. And I was like, whoa, that was really, really profound. And towards the end of the sharing circle, you know, so the women were sharing about some of the things that happened. And one woman said to me, she was just like, you are a very powerful woman. And I was like, oh, you know, I appreciate that. I'm receiving all of that fully. What you see in me is within you. And, you know, just allowing that receiving and that giving moment. But it was until after I'd left the retreat and I'd gone home and I'd sat in the forest and I was grounding my energy that I went, whoa, this actually really excites me. There's something inside of me that's like, I want more of this. Like, how do I do this more? Like, if I can do that on my own facilitating, imagine what it could be like, you know, in other areas, and just surrendering into that moment. And like you said earlier, Cam, with following your path, it was like, it's just that the universe will throw those synchronicities onto your life's path to say, well, this is where you are and this is how we evolve. And such a powerful evolution for the soul. And I could only imagine that there's listeners listening that may not be resonating with this exact storyline with shamanism or anything like that. But there's definitely that calling of, wow, I don't know why, but every time I pick up a pencil and I start drawing, I'm just really good at it. I don't even try. It just happens.
Yeah.
And it's that calling. It's feeding that
Yeah.
soul's like hunger, really.
That's that North Node calling, you know, come to the light.
Yeah.
Get away from that it's not darkness really, but it is a comfort zone that we, if if life, the universe doesn't push us out of that, we can sit in our ego and comfortably stay there for our entire lives. But that's not the point. You see, the point is to evolve. We're here to evolve, to grow. And with you, I know you have Mercury in Cancer. I don't know if you knew that, but you do have Mercury in Cancer. You have your Sun in Cancer and Mercury a little bit earlier than your Sun, but it's making an aspect in astrology is basically how planets talk to each other. So are we fighting? Are we bickering? Or are we having a beautiful conversation? Okay, so when I speak about aspects, that's what I mean. So Mercury is in aspect to your North Node in Pisces, and it's in a trine, which is 120-degree difference, and it's a beautiful conversation, right? So it's not tense. And this already tells me that you would probably be a very strong, I know you're a very strong shaman, but I also wonder, do you channel? Do you get messages? Do you feel, because it's Cancer, so you might be able to, like, when you go into a place that's very charged energetically and you start feeling sick or you get a headache, or there's something about you that can feel energy, but you can also hear it, or kind of like almost telepathy, if that makes sense. I don't know. But yeah, you could get messages like that. And it's a very sensitive Mercury as well. So you do have to be careful on how you speak to yourself and the words that you use with yourself. But it's very much supportive of that life's journey. And Mercury in your chart rules that third house. And the third house in astrology can talk about things like media and podcasts and, sharing, talking, and all of that. So what you're doing with your life right now, it's very much in line with what your path should be, if that makes sense. So I know that you already know that probably, but you are where you should be, so just keep going, because it's just going to get better from now
Mm, thanks for sharing that. Thank
on.
you so
Of
much.
course.
Well, I just want to touch on something else before we start to wrap up. I mean, I could talk to you for
I
hours and
know.
hours. Oh my gosh,
Hey.
this has just been such a beautiful, beautiful podcast. I really appreciate you coming on. But something I just want to touch on before we do close up is at the retreat, you were talking about how now you'll have to reword this because I'm not sure how it goes. But basically for the next, so every 18 months, is it? Every 18 months or every 12 months, there's a transition period that crosses over, and certain star signs that go into this area will go through, let's just say, a destruction or a spiritual awakening or a process of evolution of growth. But if we don't ride the wave consciously and know that this is happening, these challenges, we're going to be faced with these no matter what we do. So rather than fighting against them, if we can just ride that wave and allow the flow to go, then we can actually get the transformation on a more gentler approach. Can we just touch on that a
Yes,
little bit more? Yeah.
of course. So those were the eclipses. And so right now on the 17th of September, we had the first eclipse in Pisces, in the axis of Pisces and Virgo. And all planets, they go, they have the opposite sign. So Pisces opposite is Virgo. So the eclipses will be in those two signs. Now we are wrapping up the eclipses in Libra and Aries at the moment. So the last one was in October. And then the last one of that axis will be in March next year. That is when we will feel some sort of completion. Something has, okay, not yet. We still have a couple of months to go, but then it'll feel in the areas of life where Aries and Libra is in your chart. So in your case, is within relationships and yourself, relationships of all types, not just romantic. And
Yeah, there's no romantic happening there. So
and now Pisces and Virgo will start taking over. And that last time this happened, the exact same position was about 19 years ago. So we are talking about late 2006. and then 2007 and 2008. So if you guys can think back to what was happening back then, it'll give you a clue. Same things won't happen. Of course, we evolve, we grow, context changes, but it's the same. I always say the same flavor. You know, it's a familiar flavor. Like, oh, okay, so that, I don't know. I moved countries back then. Actually, I personally did. So, and I'm also an Aries ascendant, and Pisces in my 12th house of foreign lands. And so it brought a very fated move, which is when I moved to Australia. And yeah, so maybe there's another move on the horizon, or maybe there's something else that happened back then that might repeat itself now in the next 18 months. So we're talking about until 2026. So if you don't see anything yet, don't worry. We've only just had one eclipse in that axis. It's just, that was like the preview. So if you can think about September, what was happening in your life in September, August, September, October, what's happening? Because all of that will start making sense early next year. And again, if you want to look at another year, look to 2015. What was happening in late September onwards, 2015, 16, and 17? What was happening in your life then? Because that's when the inverse happened. The eclipses were still in Pisces and Virgo, but the nodes were inverse. And so again, go back to those years, what was happening in your life that might resonate to what will start happening this time around. And these are very faded events. Eclipses are the most faded and karmic events in astrology, the most. And just like you said.
So what do you mean by faded?
So things that were meant to happen, right? Destiny. So your chart will show you your fate and your destiny. So for example, if you look at my chart, if my mother had a reading when I was a baby, the astrologer would have said this girl will find herself in a foreign land. She will not do it where she was born. That is very clear in my chart. That's destiny. There's nothing I could have done to avoid that. Eclipses bring these changes, these faded events. We have free will 100%. So for example, it could be faded that you are going to, I don't know, maybe have a small car accident, right? Nothing major. It's in the chart. How you react to that car accident, that's your free will. So are you going to go off your head, or are you going to take things calmly and, you know, talk it through and it's okay, we'll sort it out? That's the free will that we have, but the event itself, it's already there. And so the eclipses bring those events and they bring them to light. And so that's why they can feel so uncomfortable, because we as humans, we live in our ego, right? In our consciousness. And we think, okay, I have control of my life. No one else drives the boat. It's me. I'm the captain. So this is where I want to go. And the universe will let you, you know, go ahead. You have 18 years. But then at 18 years or 9 years, the inverse, I'll come. And if you're not in your path, I will have to remove you from there. And that move is what might feel a little bit uncomfortable if you're not open to change. That's why I always say, you know, like I said to you guys in the retreat, ride the wave. Don't fight against it. When you fight against change, it's going to be so much harder. So maybe, I don't know, I'll give you an example. In one of the eclipses, I lost my job. And that was the first time I ever lost a job. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? You know, that's horrible. Like, it's my life, just, I saw black. And all of a sudden, it was just like, okay, don't fight against it. It's okay. It's meant to happen. Why is this happening? Like, why is this happening? And then everything started falling into place. And now, years later, I look back and I'm like, thank God that happened. Thank you for that. Because even though at the time it felt like I was losing my head over it, now looking back, looking at the big picture, I wouldn't be where I am without that experience. So it's that type of feeling with eclipses. So whatever challenges you may go through, especially if you're a sun, moon, or ascendant in Pisces or Virgo, ride the wave. You're going to be fine. It's okay. Just don't fight against it. That's the best thing I can tell you. Don't fight against the changes.
So basically, if if an eclipse is affecting you, it'll affect your sun, your moon, and your ascendant, not your star sign. Is that correct?
Yeah, so your star sign is that sun, right? That's kind of like what people say the star sign, it's your solar sign. You're a Taurus, I'm a Virgo, you're a Pisces, I'm a Gemini. That's the sun. But if you personally, you have your sun in, or your moon or your ascendant, so the three pillars, right? In these signs, Pisces or Virgo, where the eclipses are will begin, then you will experience a lot of change. People that are Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn to a lesser degree, but still affected, have been experiencing changes from a year and a half ago, right? And because that's the Aries Libra axis. So now that's going to stop in March next year, and Pisces Virgo will take over. So now people that are Pisces Virgo, sun, moon, or ascendant, or if you, for example, have your Venus, right, at 26 degrees and the eclipse is at 26 degrees of Pisces, that Venus is going to get activated. So how is that Venus placed in your chart? What does it rule? Who is she talking to? You know, that is going to come up for you as well. This is why I know it sounds like Chinese. I get it. I know. But this is why like a reading is so important, because these things can often be, people don't notice these things.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I trust that the right souls that it's meant to land will land.
Of
They'll be able
course.
to gain, yeah, that wisdom, that wisdom. That would make so much sense, because I remember at the retreat, I was like, I'm going in a double, but I'm actually not going in a double, and it's finishing for me March next year, which would make a lot of sense because the last 18 months I've had the most spiritual growth.
But may I just add to that? Because yes, spiritual growth, beautifully put when it comes to eclipses. They allow you, they open portals. Eclipses are portals. And they're very, very strong portals that allow you to tap into that next level, if that makes sense, right? Now, two things. I'm going to speak to your thing first, before I forget. Because you
Please
have
do.
your North Node and your South Node in Pisces and Virgo, that means that you will have your nodal return, right? So a nodal return is kind of like a solar return. A solar return is basically when the planet goes back to the original position, to the natal position. So we have that every year. For our birthday, the sun takes 12 months to go around the wheel, and it comes back to Cancer every single year, right? So you experience a solar return every year. This is the same for every planet, including the nodes. So the nodes also have their return, and you are going to be going through your nodal return. And this is an extremely important and spiritual experience in your life, where you will probably start seeing a lot of faded karmic events, not in a bad way, taking place. You know, like it'll give you that push, that umph, in order to for you to start going towards that North Node again. So it's very still crucial for you because you have your nodes there. So I would still suggest to pay attention to the eclipses that are coming up in that axis book, because it'll affect you in a good way, not in a challenging way. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on super quickly is that, just an advice for people for eclipses, solar or lunar retreats, eclipses, as I said, they are portals, right? And back in the day, our ancestors, every time there was an eclipse, we used to hide. So we stay indoors, shut the blinds, we just meditate, pray, back in the day. It's not advisable to do any sort of rituals, just because the energies are so heavy, and especially a lunar, I keep saying return, a lunar eclipse, we lose light. So there's no light, there's just darkness. So in the ancient world, they used to believe that this is when like bad things could come out. This is on the day of the eclipse, not the whole period, just the day of the eclipse. So on the day of the eclipse, I always recommend people just to try and stay indoors. Don't do any rituals. Meditate, pray, whatever suits your soul. Have a bath, eat well, drink a lot of water, especially lunar eclipses. Just look after your body. You might get headaches, you might get the flu, just listen to your body and just go with it. But don't expose yourself to, say, for example, going to the pub, because this eclipse will be affecting everyone. And you don't know how it affects the other people, whether it's playing against their chart or in favor, in a conflictive or a more harmonious way. We don't know. So we just have to be a bit mindful of the eclipses, especially lunations, as in full moon and new moons, they're fine. But lunar eclipses, solar eclipses, they are like lunations on steroids. So the energy is so much more heavy. So that's just a quick advice for you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. There's so many mixed messages out there. I know that there is on social media. I know recently with the might have been the lunar or the solar eclipse that happened a few months ago. It was all over social media in regard to people posting about come to this ritual, go
Mm,
outside and you can see it. And then there was lots of other people posting that like saying, no, you're not supposed to go
yeah,
and look at this. Like this, it's ancient. We're not supposed to be looking at these
we're
things.
not.
Wait until it's over and then go and have a look. Or yeah, and they're like, why are you doing rituals and gatherings and get gatherings together in these spaces? Like this is not the ideal place. So thank
No,
you so much for sharing that.
of
It's really,
course.
really potent
Yeah,
information.
it's as you said, a lot of misinformation out there. Of course, everyone has their own free will. Do what you please,
Of
of
course.
course. I personally, as an astrologer, choose not to look at them, no matter how beautiful, how rare they may be. I know better than that, but that's my belief, right? That's a personal thing. But I do know, for example, a lot of people that chase, because you know how they like chase eclipses, some people.
Mhm.
I know a few. And unfortunately, a lot of bad things start happening in their lives after that. And I
Mm.
don't, I don't say that to them, but I know why. But they always start complaining. The most recent one, the girl, she said to me, Cam, my dog died. Like, I don't understand. It was out of nowhere. This was 3 days after she went and chased that eclipse. And then her relationship failed. And then she had issues at work. And all of these things start happening in her life. And I'm just, unless you ask me for advice, I'm not going to give it to you, because you have to respect everyone's own decisions. And that's why I say it's your free will. It's your own free will.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for
Oh
your
God.
magic, your juiciness, your information, and all of the magic that you offer this beautiful world,
Thank you. Thank you
myself
so much.
included.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Where can my listeners find you? Do you have a specific platform?
Yes, so it's Instagram, so at cam.fendley. I'm sure you'll put it.
I'll
Yeah.
post it in the show notes.
Um,
Absolutely.
and then my website, Camilla fendleyastrology.com. I don't do YouTube just yet, but maybe. We'll see. But that's how normally people find me, through the website or through Instagram.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you
But
so
thank
much,
you so
Cam.
much. Thank you for allowing
I
me the space. Thank you. I had so much fun. This to me is playtime. It's honestly playtime.
Yes, I love that. I highly, highly, highly recommend reaching out if you feel the call to reaching out to Cam. Even just reaching out to her and even just giving her a follow. She's got some magic up there in her Instagram. But yeah, I know that the reading that she offered me was completely life changing. So I highly recommend,
Thank you.
yeah, reaching out to her. You're welcome, sister. You deserve that. Sharing your magic with the world. Sending you so much love to
Thank you.
all of you beautiful, beautiful listeners. Mwah. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.